president said the House bill was mean. The Senate bill may be
meaner. It is heartless.
You can put a lace collar on a pit bull, and it's still a mean dog.
So sad, Mr. President. Heartless. Mean and heartless.
Wow. How could they? Not Republicans, Democrats. Mean and heartless? Folks, I'm departing a little bit from form here to say that I've had a chance to examine the latest Senate health care proposal and the Democrats' proposal, the one that's trying to become the law versus the one that already is. And let's just say I have a very different definition of mean and a very, very different take on heartless. If Republicans still spending hundreds of billions of dollars on health care is mean, please tell me what constitutes nice. If still covering people with pre-existing conditions is heartless, what exactly shows heart? If keeping kids on your policy longer matters when Democrats do it, it doesn't when Republicans do it. If Democrats bemoaning Republicans wanting to pay for all of that is reckless, then I guess Democrats not too concerned about how you pay for all of that makes them clueless. If Barack Obama calls this Senate attempt a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, wasn't he the one who started this transfer in reverse, exploding cost on the poor and the rich? No, my friends, this is not about a massive transfer of wealth. It is about a massive departure from reality. I'm the geek here. I've done the math. What's mean, my friends, is doubling premiums you promised would stay low. What is mean is limiting their options for care when you promised they would still have plenty of options for care. What is mean is saying you can keep your doctor when you can't keep your doctor. What is mean is forcing young people to pay up for coverage when maybe they can't afford that coverage. What is mean is saying government subsidies will help when they won't, or plenty of state exchanges will have their back when they can't. What is mean? Premium increases that keep soaring and coverage that keeps shrinking. What's mean is telling folks health care is like money in the bank, even if it means no money left in their pocket. That is what's mean. That is what's heartless. Not Republicans introducing Democrats to something called math, but Democrats who concocted this mess, ignoring that math. What is heartless is telling folks it is deplorable to do things in secret, when in fact the Affordable Care Act itself was cooked up in secret. You remember the closed doors? They're not pretty. But Chuck Schumer lecturing anyone on keeping them open, well, that's pretty stupid. What's heartless is when the same Chuck Schumer says this Senate measure will send costs soaring while refusing to see those costs already are soaring. What is heartless is saying Republicans are actually killing people. They actually said that. When in fact what is really heartless is year after year of Obamacare lemmings lying to people, all the people, about deductibles now pricier than some premiums, and premiums pricier than most can afford. Now, if that is compassion, what counts for clueless? If that shows heart, how then to explain this present-day healthcare hell? That is what is heartless. That is over-the-top hypocrisy on the left. That is what is mean. It shows a cavalier disregard for facts the left chooses to ignore and a phony interest in the health of folks for whom liberals couldn't care less. You know, these Republican plans aren't perfect. I've said so and reported on this show many, many times. But they're out there because the law they hope to replace isn't remotely close to even passable. Actually, you could argue Republicans aren't doing any favors by replacing one big old omnibus government health care program with a slightly less big old government health care program. That proves Republicans are not financial saints, but that does not mean they're moral sinners. I just find it odd that the same folks who feared Republicans would repeal health care have in fact gone to great lengths, those Republicans, to secure health care, oddly keeping the one thing they said they would rip apart. God knows it isn't helping the grand old party, but don't you find it a little grand, a little rich, that somehow they're getting the blame for the disaster of Obamacare? That's no party. Them, they're the facts. And not President Obama himself getting any blame, who seems to have conveniently forgotten all of those empty promises behind Obamacare. You know what? He made those promises. Democrats pushed those promises. And now they're lecturing Republicans about breaking promises. I figure there's enough blame to go around, my friends, for programs that promise too much. I just find it the height of chutzpah for Democrats now to call Republicans for doing too little. We need a stethoscope, all right, not to find whether there's any heart in this latest Republican plan, but to confirm whether Democrats have any heart at all. So I'm very sorry to ramble on here to kick off a show, but this whole narrative of blaming Republicans for this mess, man, oh man, it is way off and more than a bit much. I just gave you the facts. I just broke down the numbers. I just told you the good and bad of each. But for one party to claim the other party is all bad, that Republicans are the one who concocted a mess they're trying to fix, that's a bit rich. To Betsy McCoy, author of Beating Obamacare, who was the first to seize on developments that didn't add up then. She joins us now. Betsy, I was hearing this mainstream narrative that was played out in paper after paper, website after website, news channel after news channel, and it was identical. Identical. It's
That's
appalling.
right. It's divisive demagoguery. It's dishonesty at its height. But the fact is, this bill doesn't transfer wealth from the poor to the rich. It transfers money from the government to the economy, where it's intended to boost jobs and land in the pockets of working people. That's the Trump agenda: rewarding work, dignifying work. So it repeals the job-killing employer mandate, and it repeals about $600 billion in job-killing taxes, including the 3.8% surcharge on investments, and the result will be a booming economy. In many ways, this repeal bill is the beginning of the economic recovery.
Well, we could, argue over the particulars and whether this will do that and deliver the goods, but I just found it shocking, especially in a lot of very popular newspapers today, to say Republicans are to blame for the morass that is the health care now, as if they created this. As things stand now, the problems are with the law itself that exists.
That's
not
right.
what they're coming up to fix it. So when Americans are asked, well, we don't like the Republican plan, first of all, they've not been given an honest assessment of a Republican plan, because we only recently just got this one. The point and the dissatisfaction of the frustration with health care coverage is what's out there and available right now. And a lot of Americans are very anxious about it now.
Also, the Democrats are demagoguing the issue of putting some sort of framework of controls and responsibility on Medicaid. But Medicaid was intended as a safety net. Now, 74 million Americans are enrolled in Medicaid, 20 million more than in Medicare, the program for the elderly. In fact, here's an astounding fact. Half of all the women in the United States who give birth have Medicaid pay for it. Half. That's not a safety net.
And it's an unsustainable one. You could tax the rich at 100%. You could put surtaxes on top of surtaxes to keep this going, and it couldn't possibly keep up with this. So to acknowledge the faultiness of the math misses the bigger point that it's not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It is a very real issue.
It is.
And we get into this talking point nonsense and crap to go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with the reality of the numbers that are not sustainable.
That's right. And also, you will hear in this divisive demagoguery this talk of blood money. I'm quoting there Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Can you believe that?
It's astounding. The fact is, everyone who is currently enrolled in Medicaid is grandfathered in. So the concept of losing their coverage, that's a total lie. It is true that this bill will slow down future enrollment in Medicaid, and that is desperately needed. What Obamacare did was to say to the states, to the governors, enroll as many people as you can, and the federal government will pick up the entire tab. So, of course, they irresponsibly expanded Medicaid way beyond what's affordable to rake in all those federal dollars. And not only that, but they didn't even pay attention to how the money was spent. An astounding 9.8%, 10% of Medicaid spending are wrong payments. Any business with that record would be out of business.
But, the bottom line, when it's been characterized as me, and I always think, when I see a pile-on in the media, there's not even an attempt to balance it out, and there's a great sense of this person's going to be deprived of this benefit, someone's going to be deprived of this. We are all stuck with the costs that have accelerated because of this. And I think when people are sold a bill of goods, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to step back, Look at the numbers. I don't care if you're right or left, Republican or Democrat. Look at the math, and the math isn't sustainable. And to fix this, and you can have plenty of problems, plenty of issues with the way Republicans are going about fixing this, or whether now a fifth senator who's concerned about this Senate measure is a sign that it is doomed in the Senate. The fact of the matter is none of this would be attempted right now, and none of this would be considered right now if it wasn't such a crappy measure in the first place and people were losing money hand over fist and costs were rising at triple the rate they were. I mean, we wouldn't even be in this position if it was working like a charm. It
and
wasn't,
Neil,
it isn't.
Obamacare is also weighing down and depressing the economy. We can't get from 1% growth to 3% growth, the president's goal, unless we repeal the parts of Obamacare that are killing job creation. And that's what this Senate bill does. It repeals the employer mandate, and it repeals the taxes that are depressing job growth.
All right, Betsy, thank you very, very much. I apologize you for getting so worked up, and I hope you folks at home will understand my getting worked up. But sometimes when I see just one number lie after one number lie, I'm not taking a party position on this. I could care less. The president doesn't come onto this show, doesn't flip over me. I have no agenda here. My agenda is the truth. And you are being sold a bill of goods based on the notion that people are trying to make one party look heartless simply because it sees a program and an initiative and a health care measure that has proven clueless. The facts are there. This can't work. This cannot be sustained. It's got to stop. And into this break, so shall I. More after this.
I hate this mother.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got shot.
We've laid in
I'm
our.
glad he got shot.
Dude.
I'm not gonna.
You don't have
Well,
to say
then
that
what are
in
you
public.
saying it to us
Say
for?
something. Say something.
What are you telling us for?
I wish he was dead.
Lovely. Nebraska Democratic official fired after that rant against Steve Scalise. By the way, still in the hospital, only today taken out of intensive care. This coming with a new report that at least 30 Republican lawmakers have been threatened or attacked since May. The Washington Free Bacon's Alex Griswold with more on that. I couldn't believe those numbers, Alex. Spell it out.
Well, I couldn't believe it either. I first looked into this because I thought, honestly, it'd probably be like 1 or 2 or 3. And I only looked at the threats after the Scalise shooting. But when I realized how many there were before, it was just mind-boggling. But yes, it's 30 total for, I want to say, it was 9 or 10 incidences. Obviously, the Scalise shooting tends to skew things a bit because there were 20 or so Republican lawmakers targeted there. But this is something that's happening all over the nation. This is something that's happening to Republican congressmen everywhere.
You know, the one thing I can understand, all right, they don't flip over Donald Trump. They don't and cannot fathom to this day how it is he won the election, got all those electoral votes. So they cling to the Russia thing and everything else, the collusion thing, anything they can to sort of delegitimize the guy, whether you like him or not. All right, I can see the hatred. All right, fine, run with it. But man, oh man, they are crossing a dangerous line with this sort of talk, with these kind of threats. I tell you, if it were done in reverse, which was the consensus sort of prediction before the election that it was going to be the Trump folks you had to worry about, no one thought it would be these folks you'd have to be worrying about. What do you think?
Oh, sure. And we almost have a preview of what would have happened if it had been done in reverse, because the media just kind of assumed that it happened in reverse during the Gabby Gifford shooting about 4 years ago. And they absolutely hammered Republicans. They accused them of, fomenting this environment of hate, even though, as it turns out, they weren't even responsible. But, here you have 30 GOP congressmen who have been threatened just in the past 2 months. And, there's no overriding narrative about it.
It's always, even after this whole Scalise incident, it was taken, depending on the channel you watch, I mean, there's been enough strong language there, but I think it's fair to say that since the president's inauguration, a lot of that anger and fermenting hostility has been on the left, not too pleased with him, and expressing in all sorts of ways, including protesting the day of his inauguration and continuing virtually nonstop ever since. And now it's extended to Hollywood types, including Johnny Depp, lately saying that maybe it's time for an actor to take down another president. This is nuts and out of control nuts.
It is nuts. I'd like to think it's probably the worst that we've seen since at least the Civil War. Politicization of this factor. It's been, fomenting for years, as we all know. But, I mean, this is the first time we've seen it get really as violent as it has, where you have 30 people being threatened. You have a Republican congressman down in Tennessee who was almost driven off the road by someone just because they didn't like his stance on the health care bill. I mean, it's nuts.
But, you know, there is a sort of in the DNA of the left to say, have a tolerance for all sorts of points of view, all sorts of issues, races and creeds, which is fine. Then practice it, then believe it, then illustrate it, then show it.
You know what? Yeah, that's what almost hurts me the most, is that this is not a left-wing way of thinking. And I know most liberals are better than this. So, you know, we talk about why isn't the media calling this sort of behavior out. You know, liberals, it's on you too. You should be calling this out as well. This is, you know, not part of your tradition. This is nothing. It's not liberal at all. It's not even American.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if someone at a Trump rally punched someone, that would get crazy coverage. This sort of thing, not so much. But man, oh man, I mean, yeah, it really is affecting my appetite today, by the way. But that's just me. Alex, thank you very, very much. Very good seeing you.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, get a load of this. There's a Trump supporter in Texas who got so fed up with the media coverage and obsession with all this negative stuff, including the Russian interference charges with the election last year. Well, he built a billboard calling out ABC. Wait till you hear this after this.
Tuesday, HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson goes one-on-one with Neil. First, it's critical insight on the new health care bill, plus his plans for moving millennials into the housing market. Dr. Ben Carson on a special Cavuto Coast to Coast, Tuesday.
Well, let's say you don't like how the media is covering President Trump. Have you ever considered making a billboard about it? Well, this guy did. Kyle Courtney is a Texas businessman. He's a big supporter of the president. He made this billboard in response to something he saw. Kyle, good to have you. Thanks for coming.
Neil, thank you very much for having me. I'm a big fan.
Well, it's very good to have you. What happened? What got you to do this?
Neil, like I said, kind of on the press release that went along with the billboard, I've been watching ABC News since I was a little kid. That was the only channel on TV. My parents watched it. It's just what we did when we ate dinner. That's what was on. And we, you know, they were part of the family. I believed what they said. They used to be news. They used to be journalists. And unfortunately, about 10 years ago, that started to change. And it started to look like a little bit of something else was going on. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, it started to look like propaganda. And it hurt. Those people were part of my family. And I don't have somewhere to go to news anymore. So we're through. It's as simple as that.
But what is it particularly about ABC that got your goat? I mean, you could make an argument that it's part of the mainstream media, whether you like that or not. They all kind of, you know, sing from the same choir, but
you're exactly right, and I don't watch them either. I singled out ABC News because they were my friends. They were the people I believed in. I did not watch CNN, NBC.
But was there a tipping point, Kyle? What got you, obviously, to do something like this and put a billboard? I mean, they're not cheap to do. Was it the President Trump coverage, the Russian collusion coverage? What?
It started when they started telling us to hate George Bush. And I didn't hate George Bush. And it started back then, but I continued to watch. And I just didn't turn the channel. I'm the kind of guy that reads the newspaper every day, and I watch the news. I want to be an informed citizen. I think as an American, as just a human being, you need to be informed. So I watched. And,
well, when did ABC, though, say, Kyle, that they hate George Bush? Was it just in the criticism of him, or was it just that you got tired of the coverage?
It was a day-to-day thing, and it almost looked systematic to me. And then they handed us Barack Obama on a silver platter. And I don't have anything against Barack Obama. I believe in the two-party system, in the proper change of power in our country. But it went from George Bush was the Antichrist, and Barack Obama was the savior, and that's the way they portrayed it. Night after night, that's how they handed it to us. But I kept watching. And then when they started this Trump is a Russian thing, it was too much for me.
What kind of reaction have you gotten to the billboard?
Unbelievable reaction. It has just been overwhelmingly supportive.
Has the ABC affiliate or anyone at ABC Network called you or talked to you?
They have not.
They have not.
They have not. I have probably gotten 40 or 50 different interview requests from different media sources. And in my email is blown up, and I'm not a Facebook guy, but what Facebook page I do have is off the charts. My daughter is handling that for me. It's just
she's handling the social media stuff.
She's good at it. I'm 58 years old, and I'm not that social on the media side.
Well, it's wild. I mean, it shows what an individual can do on his or her own part, to play a role and just let their grief and angst be known. Kyle Courtney, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. In the meantime, speaking of things that media obsesses on, how so not necessarily this story that the former Attorney General Loretta Lynch might have tried to interfere with this Clinton email investigation? We know that to be fact, and now the Senate Judiciary Committee is demanding answers. So I'm waiting for, obviously, a lot of coverage of this tomorrow. A lot, really, after this. All right, well, we all of a sudden have some boom going on in the housing industry. Home sales, particularly new homes, they soared to a record $406,400, the average price of a home. It's percolating. There is another little investigation going on. The Senate Judiciary Committee is looking for answers from former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Remember the big dust up there as to whether she tried to sway the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton, and Director Comey at the time saying that she had told him to instead refer to what was going on there as a matter, not investigation. Well, you know where all of that went. To Catherine Herridge on where it's going now. Catherine.
Well, thank you, Neil. The chairman and ranking member of the powerful Senate Judiciary Committee, Senators Chuck Grassley and Dianne Feinstein, sent this letter to former Attorney General Loretta Lynch asking for relevant documents and to answer questions about media reporting that she would not allow the FBI probe into Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information go too far, and whether those reported assurances were shared with then DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who sent an email summarizing Lynch's position. During his congressional testimony June 8th, Comey said he went public about the Clinton email case last summer because he lost confidence in Lynch's independence. And in cryptic testimony, he appeared to reference a significant email or record.
There were other things that contributed to that. One significant item I know the committee's been briefed on. There's been some public accounts of it, which are nonsense, but I understand the committee's been briefed on the classified facts.
Another factor in Comey's decision-making was Lynch's Arizona tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton 1 week before Hillary Clinton's July 4th weekend interview with the FBI. And later that same month, Lynch was rebuked by the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee for refusing to answer questions about the email case more than 70 times.
General Lynch, we are now about halfway through the members of this committee asking questions, and your refusal to answer questions regarding one of the most important investigations of someone who seeks to serve in the highest office in this land is an abdication of your responsibility.
Today, there was no immediate response or comment from Lynch or her associates, Neil.
Catherine, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
All right, in the meantime, President Trump making good on a campaign promise to reform the Veterans Administration, just signing something called an accountability bill that would be aimed at protecting whistleblowers like this next guy, although we seem to be a little late for him. I'm talking about the whistleblower, a favorite on this show, because he's just got enormous guts, Scott Davis. Scott, I'm sure you're grateful that now they're going to be looking after guys like you who dare speak out about the horrific treatment of our veterans, but I guess better late than never. What do you think?
Well, thank you for having me on this show, Neil, and thank you for standing up for veterans. The new legislation passed by the Congress and signed by the President is an opportunity for VA to move forward and change its history as it's treated whistleblowers in the past. In fairness to the Secretary, I did meet with his new management team for that office. They shared their thoughts about how the office will help whistleblowers. I was very candid about my thoughts about where VA has failed whistleblowers in the past, and said I would keep an open mind and share their information with other whistleblowers so the office could meet the President's expectations.
What is the atmosphere like there now? I mean, when you talk to people and the mood of people, I mean, there are some promising developments here. For example, syncing Defense Department health records with those of the VA. A lot of promising stuff going on, but what do you think?
Well, you make a good point, Neil. We see advancement in certain aspects of VA as far as technology. And what a lot of people at VA are saying, whistleblowers and just career employees are saying, we hear the good rhetoric, but why are we not implementing systems that will help us better track performance measures so that when VA managers submit false reports about how they're serving veterans, the Secretary, the Undersecretary for Health, or other senior leaders could just go in the system and see the real wait time from a centralized system, see how calls are being on hold from the Veterans Crisis Line.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Are things improving there, Scott? I mean, are you getting that either the wait times are less or that there does seem to be a smoother, more efficient process? I know it's a gigantic institution. I can appreciate that. But what's the latest?
I think we get the impression that managers are starting to ask better questions. I was able to meet with a senior VA official this week. It was a productive conversation. There are still things that obviously need to be fixed, but I think that at least now under the President's direction, senior leaders are now starting to question the reports that they're getting from mid-level managers and hospital directors. And if they continue down that route and they do create the appropriate systems to track real performance measures, then that can lead to real progress at VA.
You know, knowing your story as I do, I think a lot of these changes owe to the nuisance you made of yourself, and I mean that in a good way, that you became a pain in the butt, and you wanted to stay that way. It might have alienated with the coworkers. How is it now?
Well, recently they said they were going to get rid of my department. They notified everyone in the department but me. Still will not meet with me to discuss it. The plans to change my work assignments already went through. They already started assigning my work to other people. I did speak with senior leadership, as I said. They did put the reorganizational plans on hold. So right now, we're waiting to see what's going to happen, whether or not my department will continue to exist, or will I have to seek another role somewhere else, or another role in government, or find another job altogether.
Well, that better not happen, and you come back here the moment it does. Scott Davis, thank you very much. Did a lot for those veterans and a lot for this country. Scott Davis, the VA whistleblower, who many argue got the ball rolling on addressing these ills. Thank you, Scott. All right, back to this chutzpah argument that I raised at the top of the show. Jonathan Gruber, the creator of Obamacare, saying that the GOP health care bill is a middle finger to America. That guy.
You know, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to get anything to pass.
It was like it was yesterday. Remember how Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber said the health care law was originally crafted? Remember this?
This bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. You know, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to get anything to pass.
The American voter is too stupid to understand the difference.
Wait a minute, I'm not stupid. Anyway, now he was asked about the way Senate Republicans just crafted their own health care plan.
This is a middle finger to representative democracy.
Well, Bulldog Global founder Carrie Sheffield. Wow. I don't know where to begin, Carrie. What'd you make of that?
Well, representative democracy would not embrace a man like Jonathan Gruber, who said the lack of transparency was instrumental in passing Obamacare. This is just par for the course of liberal elitism that's totally out of touch. Listen, Jonathan Gruber, if you and your team want to keep losing elections, keep talking talking that way. Please just keep going on.
But you know, Carrie, it's not as if we're not stupid in this, but we have tape or digital. What is it, Navy? Digital? It's something on digital. Anyway, we have it. We can retrieve it. And it comes back to haunt people because on the right and left, when we use it here, they don't like it. But I'm telling you, this is easy to pick apart because this same guy bragged about the very things he's condemning Republicans for now, by the way, as was Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi yesterday, completely forgetting about the way this whole thing was cooked up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is utter hypocrisy. And it's just false because Republicans have been debating these principles for almost a decade now. I mean, my friend Phil Klein over at The Examiner has an entire book on the flavors of libertarian conservatism, all these approaches to healthcare. How free market do we want to make it? This has been out in the open for so long. Jonathan Gruber, I don't even know where to keep doing it. Please do it. Keep doing it that way and keep running candidates like Jon Ossoff who are totally out of touch with the average common sense. That's what Obamacare is about. It's a rejection of common sense. It's thinking that the elite, out of touch, people like MIT professors like Jonathan Gruber think they know better than the real world.
Well, I mean, we can argue about Ossoff and the message there. He's a moderate candidate who actually didn't toe a lot of that line, but there are other issues there. But having said that, Carrie, the one thing I do notice here is that there's a sudden case